Welcome to the latest episode of the Claus Corner. Today's guest is an extremely versatile artist whose musical journey spans a spectrum of roles and genres. He's a drummer, percussionist, singer, songwriter who's also proficient on the xylophone, glockenspiel, and marimba. He even completed the captivating cover art of his latest release. His bands include Necrogoblicon, Last Leg, The Wailing Coast, Eddie Spaghetti and the Selfish Bitches, and A Lady Named Isaac. His latest band, Take and Take, recently released their debut album, Disillusion. Songs such as Sticky, Get Off, Lick, I'm Rich, Constantly, and That Won't Last help make this album an instant classic. Here to talk about all of that and much, much more, including an upcoming children's album, is not only one of the most versatile, but also one of the busiest men in music. So without further ado, please welcome Eddie Trager to the Claus Corner. Eddie, how the hell are you?
I'm great. Thank you very much. Yeah.
It's so great to have you on the show. As I mentioned off the air, we have you have a publicist, Shauna. She is the best. She sends me all these artists, and she sent me your name. So I was doing my research, and you have so many different bands, as I mentioned. And every time I had to look at it, I'm like, is this the same Eddie Trager? Because every band has a different genre. I'm going to give you an example. Some of the bands are hardcore, punk, rock, metal, reggae, ska, emo, shoegaze, emo. So you're all over the place. I love it.
Yeah. It's like a lot of stuff, I guess.
Yeah, well, we're going to get into that because you have such an interesting background. But first, I want to go into the album Disillusion, which today is March 27th. Your debut album for Take and Take, which is your latest band, was released on March 22nd. So tell me, what are you disillusioned about? We'll start with a softball question.
Yeah, good. Life, the universe, everything. Disillusion, yeah, that comes from it just came from a lot of personal stuff. The journey of life caused a bit of disillusion in me, so that's how it went.
All right, so the band, your latest band, is Take and Take. Is there a significance behind the name of that band?
Yeah, so I feel with this one, at least for the first record, there was a lot of themes of selfishness and ego and greed, right? So instead of give and take, it's take and take. And it just felt like I had a big list of names, and it just felt like the one that sort of was sticking. I had a list, and that was the one that kept sticking. Also, it can abbreviate kind of nicely, like TNT or something. So we'll see if I use that. But
so with what you mentioned, the ego and everything like that, was that from different people you've met throughout life, and you just decided to write about the music was very cathartic to you and just get out all your aggressions into music?
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah. Ego, reflecting on myself and how others have reflected on me, I suppose.
Yeah. Well, no, I was going to say, over the years, for me, I have a real job, but for hobbies, I like to do a lot of different things. Right now, I'm doing this, but over the years, I've been a singer in a metal band. I've been in radio. I've done stand-up comedy. I wrote a book. I've done motivational speaking. So I've run into a lot of different people in that entertainment business, and ego was one of the main themes in that, especially in radio and stand-up comedy. But I think actually stand-up comedy was more insecurity, which made it seem like they had an ego because they were trying to overcompensate. But more with the radio and the bands, I saw a lot of ego, and everybody's like, oh, come on, who are you? What do you think you are? It's like, you know what? You do your thing, I'll do my thing. Let's just have fun. That's what I'm always about.
Yeah, exactly. And I think looking back, I was probably that person to people, so that's kind of part of it too, a bit of self-reflection, but also, I met these people who I just rubbed me the wrong way, or something about the ego just doesn't vibe with me, but I've also done it to other people. Guaranteed.
Well, no, I could definitely say that same thing. TNT with me, because in my 20s I had a little bit of an attitude, and if somebody rubbed me the wrong way, same thing. I'm 55 now, so as you get a little bit older, you realize things that you thought were important, like, really, that bothered me, and then you move on a lot easier. I don't really hold grudges as much as I used to. I still do hold a grudge, but that's another story.
Yeah. I got a song called Grudge.
Oh yeah, I heard it. And for people watching this right now, as soon as this interview is over, go out and check out Eddie Trager. Any band that he is in is great. As I mentioned, all the different genres of music. You will like every type of music he has, and he gives you plenty to listen to. So I want to listen. This is what I'm impressed with too. Some of the producers you had for this album. First, we're going to Matt Bayles. For people who don't know, some of the bands. This is a small list: Soundgarden, Pearl Jam, Mastodon, Burnt by the Sun, and Minus the Bear, whom he also is a keyboardist for.
Yep. Yeah. Botch, you know.
Oh yeah, I said
Yeah.
this is a small list, so he's got
Yeah,
a lot of
exactly.
yeah. And then the other one is I might be pronouncing this incorrectly. It's Jens Bogren. Is that pronounced correctly?
Yeah, I think that's right. I always say Bogren, but I mean
Okay,
it's Swedish, so I don't know if that's accurate.
yeah. Well, you know what? Jens Bogren, Opeth, Sepultura, Arch Enemy, At the Gates, Baby Metal, Soilwork, Creator, Insan, Symphony X, and many, many more.
Yeah. Hell
How
yeah.
did you hook up with those two guys?
I just emailed him.
Was that easy?
Well, yeah, I mean, sort of, kind of. I for Matt Bayles, I just loved his stuff
Yeah,
with the Mastodon. That was like a really favorite band that I had back in the day was Mastodon, especially, and I loved, how he seemed to always capture like a specific vibe of a band. Like there's always something unique about his mix, I felt, with whatever band he worked with. And I feel like he truly like heard the band,
yeah,
and like went with it, right? So I had test mixes done with two people, but he was the winner, and it was hard to choose. It was hard to choose because the other guy I did a test mix was amazing. I mean,
yeah.
as well. I might release like a test mix at some point. It was Pell Henriksen who did like Refused, Shape of Punk to Come.
Hmm.
So like, two guys who just do amazing stuff, but Matt just kind of like nailed it right off the bat. Yeah, and he just did such a good job. He was like, do you want to send reference mixes to me? And I was like waffling and waffling, and I never sent any reference mixes
Wow.
because I felt like I just want Matt to do the Matt thing. It should
Yeah.
just sound like it is, right? Um, but that worked out. He was really kind. I'm just a guy, right? I just sent him the demos, and he was like, "Okay, I could do this time, right?" And I didn't have a band. It was just me making the recording, and he was kind enough to have me up at his studio and like sit in and do notes and stuff. Like, really kind of him to work with me. And then Jens Bogren just I don't know. I just sent an email to the, Fascination Street Studios, and
Love it.
and they said they could do it. I don't know. I guess they listened to like the Matt's mix, and we're like, okay, yeah, we can master this. I don't know.
Did they know your name from other bands? The other bands you were in?
Yeah, well, maybe. I think I mentioned that I had been in Necrogoblicon before,
Yeah.
and we had Jens do like a test master at some point or something,
Yeah.
like 15 years ago, way
Yeah.
back. And so maybe that helped a little bit. Like I was like, okay, I'm this guy from this band that you may have heard of. But yeah. Um yeah, I don't know. Just and I wasn't really like I had a lot of with scheduling, I didn't have any like deadlines for him. So I think that also like played into it. Like it was kind of like he could just fit it into where he could with his schedule because he's insanely busy. He
Yeah.
works with all those people. He did like a Taylor Swift album, right?
Oh my
Or
God.
like, it's like ridiculous stuff. So yeah.
Well, I love the fact that he's all over the place. From Taylor Swift to Soundgarden. I mean, not no, sorry, it's Matt, but Jens, Opus, Sepultura, it's Taylor Swift. So it's just great that he has such a wide variety of tastes, and because it's funny because you have a Beatles hoodie on, and I watched. So I love the Beatles. It's probably one of my all-time favorite bands, and I've seen so many documentaries, and that's when I realized with Sir George Martin how important a good producer is to the sound of the band. Most people think, oh, they just go in there, they listen to the band, say, oh yeah, do this, do that, or, like mix, put the guitars up a little higher, put the vocals a little bit lower. But no, if a good producer says, this is what I want, and just like another one for me, and you probably know a lot of other producers, I love Rick Rubin. I love almost everything he's ever done.
Yeah.
So Were
I
they?
really like his like all those System of a Down records and like Slipknot, like all the stuff that like sounds like it's kind of like technically bad but awesome. You
Yeah,
know, like if you talk to like mastering guys, they're like, you just like slam this shit and it's terrible and it's just like, but it sounds awesome. I don't know.
yeah,
It shouldn't sound awesome, but it does.
yeah. And it would Sir George Martin. I love the fact because he would say, "Well, you know what, Paul, you did this on the last album. Let's try this instead of trying guitar. Why don't you try this on piano?" And that became one of their biggest hits. I might have been "Let It Be." I can't remember, but it's just the fact that like he said, "Let's try something different," and I love that because I think you have a very similar outlook with the music. You're like, "I did this last time. Let me try something a little bit different." And so, question for you with that, because I know I've talked to many musicians and even authors and people in any of the fields, and they always said like for authors, the publishers would want the same book with a different title, and musicians, it seems like they come out with a good album and then they get typecast like, oh no, the fans only want to hear this, and they play the same music over and over again, and they're afraid to try anything different. Did you have any of that kind of pressure?
Well, no. I
Yeah.
mean, I've never had that pressure because I've never been on a label.
See, that's the best. I think now
I
is. I mean,
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I just want to say this really quick. I say even though it's good and bad, I think it's the best time for music, but also the worst time for music, meaning that anybody can come out and do something. But then again, on the other side of the coin, anybody can come out and make something, and then you don't need to rely on other people. Oh my God, we're gonna do what we can to get this out. Then you have to find a record company that wants to release your album, and they have to. So you could just it's a
Yeah.
DIY, do it yourself, and if you're good at it, which you are, you know how to market, you know how to get everything out there, and you can be as big as you want to be.
Yeah, it's strange. Like it's no record labels. I mean, I haven't really tried to send things into record labels ever, you
Yeah.
know. Um, but also no one ever has tried to talk to me about being on their record label. So, whatever.
So, I have a list of different bands that this album drew inspiration from. I want to go
Yeah.
through some of them. I want because one of them is the Beatles, which I love, and then I was surprised also. Actually, maybe not surprised by listening to it, but one of my favorite bands is Yes. I love
Yeah.
progressive metal. So, and then Queen is another one. So those three bands, plus also Opeth, Mastodon, Will to Run, Mars Volta, Jacob Collier, Sleepy Time Gorilla Museum, Insan. So you have such a wide variety of influences. Did
Yeah.
that come from? I want to go back to Eddie Trager, the early years, because I
Okay.
want to find out where all these influences came from. So let's go back to maybe you're like between 8 and 10 years old, and you're like, I want to play drums. Mom had a different story for you. What did she want you to play?
Yeah, she wanted me to play piano, of course.
Of
She's
course,
a
is
pianist.
it was it because she wanted you to be more musically versatile, or she just didn't want to hear the drums all night?
Yes. Yes, both.
I love it.
That's exactly correct. Yeah. And I mean, she's absolutely right. I should probably have played the piano the whole time.
Yeah.
But of course, when I was like 10, like a strong-willed 10-year-old, I was like, no, I just want to play drums, nothing else. So,
So we're going to talk about all the different places that you've traveled and lived, but where were you born? Which area?
in LA. Yeah.
Okay, LA. So back then, who were your major influence? Like, say, 8, 9 years old. What made you want to pick up some drumsticks and say, "This is what I want to do right now"?
Yeah, that was all Beatles and
Yes,
Stones.
I love it.
Beatles, Rolling Stones. I think I had like a tape of Michael Jackson
Hmm.
and like a Mariah Carey tape or something. Like
Yeah,
that was about it though. Basically the Beatles. We you know we always listened to tons of classical music growing up. So
yeah,
like I was in that world, but it wasn't really like my choice or my passion, even though that's what I went into in college. It became, I just love to do any kind of music,
yeah,
and I felt like classical music was like a great way to be, you know, decent at something,
yeah,
even if you're not going to end up doing it right as a career.
yeah,
Um, but yeah, it was like the Beatles.
yeah. No, definitely. It's funny for me. I got my rocks. I love all types of music. I can go from the Beatles to King Diamond to Sepultura to ABBA to Barry Manilow to Slayer, all within 25 minutes. I just love all types of music. And I think I got the rock side more from my father, the other side, the ABBA side, the Barry Manilow side, more from my mother. And I got into classical music because I love movies, and John Williams is my all-time favorite composer. So my brothers and I used to buy the Jaws soundtrack, Star Wars soundtrack, Close Encounters, and I
Yeah.
said, "Wait, I love this." And then that sort of opened the doors to Mozart, Beethoven, Vivaldi, Tchaikovsky,
Yeah.
and I love when people try to say, "Oh, well, classical music's boring." I said, "Watch any movie without music and see how boring classical music is." Like, that's what I tell people. That's what makes you cry. That's what makes you scared. That's what makes you on the edge of your seat with suspense. It's not the movie. It's the music that does that, and it's very powerful. And people say, "Oh, why would you listen to that?" Because it's great. I've
Yeah.
always been a fan of that. So I'm lucky that I grew up without blinders on, like where I love everything, and I wasn't. When people say, "Oh, what's your guilty pleasure?" It's like I just have pleasures. There's nothing guilty about it. I'm not afraid to say
Yeah.
that I like. The other night, in one weekend, I went to go see a George Michael tribute. The next night, I went to go see a Yes tribute, and then the other night, I went to go see a Stone Temple Pilots tribute. So it's
Yeah.
there's a
Yeah.
lot of great
Cool.
music out there. Yeah,
I
that's
like all that stuff too. Yeah.
yeah, no,
Definitely.
exactly. Why? I mean, I don't even have to tell you because just listening to all the different bands, which we're going to get into, I could see that you're like that. So when you were, how long were you living in LA before you? What was your next step? Did you you were playing drums? You were very young. Did you have like the school? I mean, the neighborhood bands playing drums with the kids in the neighborhood and start from there?
Yeah. So in high school, I had a band with my buddies in high school. And it's just like a rock band. Like we did like kind of like it was called FOMA, which is from I think Cat's Cradle. It's like a
Okay.
word that's in Cat's Cradle, that Kurt Vonnegut book.
Yeah.
Or and you know, we just wanted to be like kind of like Tool, but obviously had not even close to the skill level. It just ended up being like rock,
Yeah.
you know. So that was that, and then yeah, I didn't play metal until I got to college. Yeah.
Were you into metal as a kid, or did you find it later
Um,
in life?
high school is
Yeah.
when I got into it. Yeah, it's sort of like I discovered '90s Metallica like eighth grade or something. Like I
Okay.
listened to Load and Reload first for some
Oh,
reason.
yeah. See, that's not
I
a good
don't
one
know.
to
That's
start
just
with.
what I had. I don't
Yeah.
know.
Yeah.
Someone just gave me a burned CD. That's all I had, you know. That's what I ended up liking. And then like wasn't until like freshman year of high school, I guess, I like went back to Master of Puppets. I was like,
Yeah.
ah,
Yep.
I
Yeah.
see.
Yep. See, I'm lucky. As I mentioned, I'm 55, so I saw them on the Master of Puppets tour. They opened up for Ozzy on the Ultimate Sin tour, and I saw them with Cliff Burton. And then I was supposed to see him another time with Cliff Burton, and when I was just about to buy tickets, unfortunately, I heard about the bus accident, and so they're like, concert's canceled. But then I saw them plenty of times with the bass Jason Newsted and then the other bass player. But I sort of, for me anyway, I love uh, Kill 'Em All. I love Ride the Lightning, and I love Master Puppets. The Black Album is when I started to like, I don't know, and then like Load and Reload, I sort of lost interest. But when Rick Rubin came out with some new albums with them, and I said, all right, they're getting back to where they should be. So
Yeah, yeah, they like the first four, of course. I mean, if you want to include Black Album 5 or
oh yeah,
classics, I
Justice
mean,
for All, that was another good one. Yeah,
yeah, and Justice for All, it's so proggy. It's great.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah, such an interesting album. Terrible production, but
yeah,
interesting. Um, you know, and then yeah, the new stuff, I don't know. They lost me.
yeah,
I would say I like the night this is a hot take, maybe no one will agree with. I like the 90s stuff more than when they went back to thrash.
yeah.
I will say that. Just because like Death Magnetic, I don't know, they just write their songs are too long. Like
No,
cut it in half. Come on.
I know. Well, who do you think you are? Yes.
Yeah, yeah, what is this?
See, no, you're right. I do expect that from progressive metal, like Yes and other bands like that. But yeah, when I'm Metallica, I'm like, all right, come on. That's why I really haven't listened to a lot of the newer stuff. And same thing with Megadeth. I love the older stuff, like Killing Is My Business. The Business is good. I love Peace Sells, but Who's Buying, and some of the albums that. But then after a while, I'm like, eh. It's so for you. Do you like
Yeah,
more of the old school metal, or do you like more of the? Because you said, are you in your 30s? I think.
yeah, I'm in
What was that?
36.
Okay, 36. Okay, so you grew up in maybe like the '90s is when you started to get into more of the metal. The
Yeah, like early 2000s actually.
Yep.
Like
Okay.
so yeah, like when I don't know, I got into like thrash, big
Yeah.
thrash in high school, you know, and all into the thrash.
Yeah.
And then after that, I found like Children of Bodom and like more like folksy and more like death extreme stuff, like
Yeah.
Lamb of God, you know, was in there in high school. And then the like refused, um, like going to the punk hardcore side.
Yeah.
And then what's that band? Dystopia. You ever listen to
I
Dystopia?
did. Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, like so I don't know. I just had friends just like hand me stuff. That's how I got music then. So once I once I had discovered like, and you know, I loved Avenged Sevenfold at that time too. And
Yeah.
um once I got into that, then I kind of loved all metal.
Yeah.
You know, I love it all. Like the progressive stuff, the death metal stuff. I really love like lots of like black metal influence stuff and hardcore. Um I mean I've hardcore sometimes. I mean, I'm kind
Yeah.
of particular, but yeah.
Yeah. Well, who do you like for hardcore? I'm curious.
For hardcore, I
Do you
mean,
like?
I just saw Ceremony.
Okay.
They played with the Palladium, and I'm not really like well versed in their stuff, but it was a great show.
Yeah.
Um, it was great. Who was there was that band, the Warriors.
Oh
I
yeah.
listened to back in high school, I
Yep. I
think.
have a CD of them. I forgot all about them until you just mentioned. That's funny.
I
Like
know, right? Like,
like
you
Sick
still
of It
think
All. What do you
about
like? Do you like Sick of It All?
never got into Sick of It All.
Really? So I like. And there's well, I'm not friends with the guitar player. The guitar player that I was friends with left the band, but Hatebreed is from Connecticut. That's where I'm from. So they're
Oh
really
yeah.
big in this area. I'm not sure if you heard of them. They used to
Yeah, Hate
30th
Breed
anniversary.
and like
Yeah,
18 Visions, weren't they a
yeah, yeah,
hardcore band? Yeah, yeah.
yeah. So that's
I dabbled. I dabbled a little bit. Nowadays I get like way more exposure to that stuff because I'm in Last Leg
yeah,
and those guys know everything about like punk and hardcore and I'm just like a metal guy who's like a noob like with in that world, you know.
yeah. Well, all right. Let's talk about that. First, I still want to stick with Take and Take for a little bit
Sure.
because I love the video of Sticky. That was the first single. When I
Oh, cool.
started, like when I was doing my research on you, I didn't realize that you were a one man band. So I turned, I was like, wait, which one's Eddie? So wait, he's the singer. Wait, no, he's a guitar player. Wait, no, he's the drummer. So I'm laughing and I said, so with this, I'm guessing you play every instrument on the album. You do it all.
Yes. The exception is keyboards, which I sequenced because I'm not a good keyboardist
Okay.
at all.
See if you
I
stuck
didn't
with those
continue
piano
those
lessons.
lessons. Yeah, exactly. I didn't continue those lessons. So I sequenced those. Um, but yep, played every note on the thing. Otherwise,
Now, are you
yeah.
going to take this band on tour? And if you do, who are you going to use as musicians?
Yeah, so I've got we're a four-piece currently.
Okay.
Um we did an album release show. That was our first show in the US because I played solo stuff at a bar, you know, when I lived out of the country. Uh but so I've got Isaac on keys from a lady named Isaac.
Hmm.
Um right now I have Tim Lekovetsky, who was the original guitarist of Necrogoblicon, but
Hmm.
he's on drums.
Ah,
And then this guy Eric, who's also in a thrash band called Grudgebot, local guys. Yeah, so that's who I have right now. Looking for a second guitarist to round out the lineup and make it sound, you know, total.
now do you have a tour planned?
Nope,
No.
no tours planned. We'll probably. I have a day job. I work as a
No.
teacher, so and all those guys, most of those guys do too. So
Yeah.
we'll stick around here, you know, LA West Coast area for a while, and down the pipe we'll
Yeah.
work on a tour. Yeah.
Um, well, luckily for me, I live in Connecticut, so if you ever do the New York, New Jersey, Massachusetts area, I can easily make it to all those within maybe an hour and a half to 2 hours. So hopefully you can make it down to the East Coast somewhere
Oh,
in this
killer.
area. Because there's not, I mean, unfortunately, as I mentioned before, I was in bands in the 80s. There were so many clubs for bands in this area, and it's just, there's really nothing anymore. It's sad. Like, so do you see a huge change? Like, how long you've been playing music for basically your whole life? I mean, maybe not professionally. So you said you have a day job, but you're making money from, so you are a professional musician.
Sure.
Do you see a huge change, not just with the whole streaming, a huge change in the way the music is either with audiences coming to shows and how they get into it? Because I talked to a lot of musicians and they say, I just can't stand seeing, like, basically it's just like the other bands staring at us going, all right, are you guys almost done? Do you see a lot, or do you get enthusiastic audiences are like, yeah, I love this?
Um, I know at least in like the punk hardcore scene in LA, because I've done like most of the shows these days are with Last Leg.
Yeah.
That's who like is the most active live band that I'm in. Like those shows go off, you know, kids get into it. Um, Metal, I don't know. I don't know about that. It's hard. With metal, you have to hit like a certain.
Yeah.
I don't know. You have to sit. What is? I don't know what the word is, but you have to hit a certain level before people start showing up. And I don't know what that level is, but
Yeah.
I don't know. Like Necrogoblicon hit it when I was in the band, right? Like people started showing up. But with this band, I think it'll. I just don't know how long it'll take. We'll see.
Yep. I think for me, from like some of the people that I interview, what it is that they're older, like, so they're my age, and so when they were in their 20s, all their friends and everything were in their 20s, so they're like, yeah, going crazy. Now people that are showing up to see them are people my age, and they're just like, I'm not really into. I got to go to work tomorrow morning, and I don't have time for. So I think that some of the people that were complaining, but they just had a big hardcore festival in Connecticut, and Hatebreed headlined
Yeah.
it. I saw
Oh,
it. It
cool.
was just nonstop moshing. The place was sold out. So yeah, I agree. I think the punk scene or the hardcore scene definitely has a rabid audience, and they don't care who it
Yeah.
is, how old they are. That they're going to get into it, and they have a good time.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's hard. Yeah, it might just be like old guy bias. Like
yeah,
everyone's got a day job that I know, and I don't. It's not like college days or whatever. Like when I was in college with Necro, and we would play a show every weekend.
hmm,
It was in Isla Vista, UCSB, and it was just like a rager every time because
exactly.
that's just what it was.
Yeah,
But like, that's just like not in my world now.
yeah,
It's just not it,
yeah,
So
yeah.
maybe that's just that.
Yeah. Well, I want to talk about this. What is the origin of this band, and how did it all come together for Take and Take?
Yeah, for Take and Take. So I got kicked from Necro 2016, and I was in Puerto Rico. I was just like having a vacation. And then they kicked me out, and I was like, okay, well, I don't have a job to go to. That was my job, and I don't have anything to do. I don't have to go home and practice for tour like I was gonna planning to do. Uh, so I just like, and I had wanted to travel. Like touring was awesome, and it gave me like a little taste
Yeah,
of traveling. But I was like, okay, well, now's the time. I'm still in my 20s. I'm just gonna go travel. So I went to Colombia with a plan to stay there for like a month, maybe. And I stayed there for more than a year.
so I'm guessing with Necrogoblicon, you were making a good amount of money where you're able to just travel, and you didn't have to have a quote unquote real job. That was your job, and you made enough money from that band that you were able to not work for a year and travel. Wow.
Yeah, I mean, but I did it real cheap. Like when I
Yeah.
went down to Colombia, I did the whole thing where you can live in a hostel and like do work for them. I would just do like a few hours work and then have a free place to stay. Because
Yeah.
I didn't want to do anything. I was all depressed. I didn't want to like go back to my work and whatever work it would be. I like taught in between tours, taught lessons. It's pretty much every musician does now.
Yeah.
Uh, but yeah, I don't know. I just made it work. I ended up teaching like English and stuff sometimes by the end of that year. But yeah, we just never toured enough to make like the right amount of money.
Hmm.
Like it wasn't sustainable at the point that it was at. Like we made money on tour, but then there would be like 3 or 4 months of nothing,
Yeah.
and I would just be like, "The fuck is this?
No, what year?
What am I doing?"
I know when you left Necrogoblicon in 2016. What year did you start with them? What was the time frame?
2007.
Wow. So you were in that band for that long. And so
Yeah.
I'm trying to think of the era around that time. So streaming really wasn't a big thing back then, was it?
Well, it started with like
Because I know
when we
Napster.
in 2007.
No, I'm trying to think when Napster was one of the first ones that came out, and that's when everybody was freaking out, especially
Yeah.
Metallica. Like there's, so I'm trying to think of like for you, were you still making money from selling albums and cassettes
Yeah,
and
like
CDs?
we produced a bunch of CDs
Yeah,
and like shirts and hoodies and stuff. So yeah, we were selling CDs, but the sales were going down. And Spotify, when did Spotify come on the scene? 2012 or
something
something,
like that.
or
That's what I was trying to
before that?
think. It seems like everything's just accelerated so quickly. I don't remember when it all started.
Yeah, so like when we released Stench, it went on to Spotify,
Yeah,
like whenever Spotify happened, if it was like at the same time or not. But so basically everything that I was on with Necro like went to streaming like almost immediately.
yeah.
Yeah.
So you did most of your money from selling merchandise then, CDs and merchandise.
Yeah, yeah, Bandcamp.
Yeah.
And then like there's no money, no one's making any money unless they're a big YouTube guy or they play shows.
Yeah.
That's streaming is garbage
Oh,
money.
I know. People tell me I have a lot of friends that are in bands and they make 3 cents on it every time somebody streams a song or something to that effect. It's very very low. So you're never ever going to be able to make a living just from streaming.
No, it's never gonna happen. Not the way it is now. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Do you
Oh
see? And
well.
I was going to ask you, but I already know the answer. Is like, do you see any hope that it'll get better? What I think they should do is maybe that force you to buy the music instead of just, oh, you can stream it for free. It's like if you really want to go to Bandcamp, buy it. That's why a lot
That's
of
what I
every
tell
band
people.
mentioned,
Yeah.
yeah,
If
yeah,
you want to go to Bandcamp, that's where the money is for. If you wanted to go directly to an artist, go to Bandcamp and do it. Or, sometimes Spotify has like a donation button
hmm
or something. You can just like give the band money on PayPal or something. Like I've seen that before. Yeah, I would say go to a show and buy a shirt. That's what I do. Yeah.
So where did that band tour for all those? Where'd you play? Like, did you
Necro?
play all? Where Necrogablicon? What
Oh yeah,
areas did you play?
everywhere.
Everywhere?
Yeah, US, Canada,
Wow.
Europe. Yeah.
Was that band on a label?
Nope.
No, you
Nope.
just I love it. So you like you said, oh, you mentioned before you were never on a label. You just
Well, Stench was supposed to be put out on a label, but then the label just was like, when it came time to actually do it, they just like were like, no.
yeah.
It was a small label. It was just like, a guy who had inherited some money from his dad or something. It wasn't like a big thing. It was an indie label, and we took forever to do the record. It took a long time, like 4 years or something. And then by the time we were ready to put it out, he was just like, no.
Okay.
So we just did it.
Was
You know,
that one of the reasons that sort of the band disintegrated, where it's just things weren't happening the way that you wanted it to, and then egos got in the way, people were getting sick of each other? Is that something what happened
well,
towards the end of the band?
not so much. Yeah, I mean, there was just like personal issues, and their singer, there's no original members in that band anymore.
Yeah.
And the singer was recently, they recently parted ways.
Nice way of
But
saying.
yeah, but I had everyone who left Necrogoblicon over the years, there was one reason.
Yep. Okay. That's all you have to
Yeah,
say.
yeah.
It reminds me of Eddie Van Halen and David Lee Roth. It's always like there's one guy in the band and somebody just so
Yeah.
but actually like as they say things happen for a reason. So I think it's a good thing because I love take, but I'm curious. So you're out of Necrogoblicon. I know why you did it, but what made you pick Columbia? What was down there that was so special?
I don't know. I literally went on like some flight website and chose the cheapest ticket that was in South America
I love it.
from Puerto Rico. That's how I got there. I was like, okay, I'm just gonna go here. That's where I went.
So when
So,
did the idea for Take and Take come to you?
so yeah, so without Take It, the name itself is like a recent thing that I only came up with last year. But all the music stuff,
Yeah.
I wrote a bunch of it in 2016.
Mm-hmm.
Like during that time when I was in Colombia. And some of the working names of the titles of the songs were actually just where I was in Colombia at the time. you know, um like there's the song Constantly, that big long prog one in the middle
Yeah.
was called Meta, because I was in it was like a play on metal and being meta, and like I went to Acacias Meta, which is like a state, province in Colombia, Meta.
Yeah.
And, you know, so yeah, a lot of it came from that. I was disillusioned. I thought the music industry was crap, still is.
Mhm.
But at that particular time, I kind of was still holding on to like, well, go back to the US and do metal like next month or something,
Yeah.
was in my head. Or maybe I'll go back and like join some other band, or I don't know. But I was just like sick of it. I was just sick of the whole thing, and like I had just lost like my friends who I hung out with all the time.
Mm-hmm.
Just like
Yeah.
lost them. Uh, and that's where that stuff came from. And then there was other songs, like riffs and things came from different places, but a lot of them came from that. Yeah.
So when you were writing the music, did you have a guitar on you, and that's where you just come up with a riff, or did you write the
Yeah,
lyrics
so
first?
all I had down there was like an acoustic guitar. So sometimes I mess around with the acoustic guitar, but I would write a lot in MIDI. Like I'd put a chord down and like play around with writing in MIDI, like with my mouse. And
Yeah.
that's also part of the reason that it took so long, is because I didn't write this shit on a guitar some of the time.
Yeah.
And it was like, and I couldn't even play it. Some of the stuff I wrote, it's like, well, I can't play this, but I just wrote it. There
Wait,
it is. We'll see.
wait, I have a question. I want to get back to that. That's interesting. So you wrote a song that you couldn't even play.
Oh, for sure. Not like the song Get Off.
Yeah, I
That
love that
song is
song.
like it's so hard. It's for me anyway.
Yeah.
It's so hard.
Yeah.
Um, could not, could not do it. And even in 2020, when I did the first demos, that riff was like barely podged together. And when I played it on the record the final time, it was in a different tuning. Like it was so hard to play that, and I had paid no attention to where notes were on the guitar,
Yeah.
right, to make it playable when I wrote the thing, because I wrote it MIDI, that like I had tuned the low B on the 7th string, like the lowest note, just a half step down.
Mm-hmm.
So I couldn't even do like regular power chords or anything when it came to doing chords. And it was a really weird tuning. And I like did away with that in the final version. I like
Yeah.
did a regular drop tuning, and it became slightly easier. But yeah, there was like a bit of struggle
That's
because I mean, writing that
that's
other
funny.
people.
I wrote a
Yeah.
song that even I couldn't play. But you know what?
Well, that's like the entire story of like
Yeah.
all Necrogoblicon music too.
Oh, really? No, who
Oh
wrote most
yeah,
of their?
just writing all the stuff that we could barely touch, and then just like working it up for years and finally playing it.
Were you the main songwriter when you were in the band?
No, no, I
No.
wasn't.
Okay.
I did write songs like on Heavy Meta, the the second full length that I was on. I wrote a bunch of stuff. I had more of a hand in the writing, and on the Power EP, I had a song, couple halves of songs.
Yeah.
um, but on Stench, I basically didn't write anything except for my drum parts. Um, and then yeah, so
Well, I
yeah, the
mentioned.
main the
No, go ahead. Sorry.
sorry, yeah, the
No.
main songwriters were always Nikki, the singer, and Tim when he was in the band.
What I wanted to say in the intro, I mentioned that you're a drummer, percussionist, xylophone, glockenspiel, marimba, guitar player, songwriter. So, did you ever take lessons in any of this, or are you self-taught completely?
Oh, for percussion, yeah, I did a lot of. That's what I took lessons in.
Okay.
I didn't take lessons in anything else. I taught myself guitar
Wow.
and bass, because my brother took guitar lessons, so I was just like steal his guitar and and then try to play it because I thought it was cool, which it was. And and but percussion, yeah, I did classical music. I did percussion performance at UC Santa Barbara, and I like did jazz and like played in the orchestra and was the percussionist in the orchestra and stuff. So, and we played Bach and all this.
I love that. Yeah. You know
Yeah,
what's
it's cool.
funny? I just interviewed somebody who did a documentary on Karen Carpenter. I did not realize I love the Carpenters, but I did not realize what a great drummer she was. She is
She's
a
insane.
yes,
Yeah.
and she is such heavily jazz influenced. I never knew any of this until I saw videos of her when I was doing my research. Wow, yeah, because talking to myself, and it's like when she's playing the Carpenters, you don't really hear that much of drumming, but when she's really good.
Yeah, yeah, she's amazing. And to sing that way while doing drums, like, is so hard. I could never. That's really hard. I don't know. Playing drums and singing is harder than playing guitar and singing, I would say,
I can't
for
imagine.
sure.
Well, that's a great segue. So I want to talk about one of your other bands. Was it the Wailing Ghost? Is
Oh,
that
Wayland Coast.
Coast, Wailing Coast. I'm sorry about that because I'm on the other page. The Wailing Coast, the drummer does the singing. Is that correct?
Yep, yep,
Yeah.
he does.
Because
Aaron,
I
yeah.
was listening to it today and I said, I love this, but I wasn't sure if that was your voice or it was somebody else's. I was doing my research. It said the drummer playing drums and singing.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Um, yeah, really hard. I don't know how he does it, but he
Yeah.
does.
Yeah. No, it sounds great too. We're gonna get into that band in a minute 'cause there's so much I
Okay,
want to talk about. So I want to still
cool.
stick with Take and Take. So 2016, you started writing. When you were coming up with these riffs and writing while you were in Columbia? Did you have something that you can record these on so you don't forget?
Yeah, so I was doing it in Logic on my laptop. I just had a Mac. I was just making it in Logic.
Yeah. The
Yeah.
reason I asked because I saw, as I mentioned, I'm a huge Beatles fan. I was listening to an interview with Paul McCartney. He said that the reason they made the song so simple in the beginning is because he had nothing to record the songs on. He didn't want to forget them.
Oh yeah, that's a great reason. That's yeah, that so when I was in Colombia also I wrote a bunch of stuff only on acoustic guitar that's gonna be on the new Eddie Spaghetti and the Selfish Bitches record,
I
which is
love that
coming.
name.
Yeah. It's pretty great. I didn't come up with it, so I can say that. um for that stuff, I literally recorded it. I had the cheapest, worst phone that I could have, and it did do voice memos. So like I just played acoustic guitar in front of the phone, and those were the demos for the next one, which is coming. Everything takes forever, you know.
Oh yeah, it's quality, not quantity.
Right, yeah, yeah.
No, no, you wrote the lyrics as well for Take and Take.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
And what was the inspiration for a lot of, I know you said in Colombia, the name of the songs anyway were from where you were, Meta and different places. For the lyrics, do you have a general theme for the album? I know like, well, Disillusion, we talked about the title
Yeah.
anyway. Is it basically a lot of the songs under that theme?
Yeah, yeah. Every song has something to do with that, I would say.
Yeah.
Even the instrumental one, I don't
Yeah.
know. But yeah, everything has something to do with that, and it all has to do with like, you know, like like we talked about ego and stuff, and like mistakes that were made both on my part and other people's part, and like inner voice versus outer voice, and
Yeah.
um what you say out loud versus what other people say out loud, and all these kinds of themes, and like what society tells you versus what you feel inside to be true, because like, I mean, shit's fucked, right?
There's
Yeah,
no other way to put it. Shit is
yeah,
fucked. You're
yeah,
right.
Yeah. So
That, no, that's funny. You know what I think is funny too? I want to ask you about what's the music scene in Colombia like?
yeah, so I played with a little metal band. I had made some friends down there and played like for a little bit, just like but again at that time I was like tired of doing music. I just didn't feel like it or
Yeah.
something. I was writing, but I was like, I don't know, I just didn't want to do the band thing or something. But
Hmm.
I met those guys and they were cool, and like there's a scene down there and there's like festivals, and music is a huge part of the culture. Like there's all sorts of like salsa and
Yeah.
all this dance music, right?
I love that too.
Um, but they love, they love metal. They don't get it as much. Like bands don't go there as much. So when they do go there,
Yeah.
it's sick. It pops off, right? Um, but I thought it was cool. It's just, I mean, it's not like LA where there's like a billion things all at once.
Yeah.
No place is like that unless it's like London or New York or whatever.
Yeah.
But I mean, I liked it. There was always music everywhere, even if it was stuff that I like had no idea how to do, right? And
Yeah.
I'm a musician, so like maybe that's different. I never thought of this before, that maybe it's like people, I'm always seeing like if I can play a thing. Like when I see music, it's like, oh, can I do this?
Hmm.
Like it's part of how I listen to it.
Yeah.
And I guess other people just wouldn't do that.
Yeah. No,
Never thought of that before. I don't know. I'm always like trying to see, like, can I do this?
no, I love that. I love that about you. It's like, you know what's funny about music, and because a lot of actors will say, "Oh, like people in other countries, like you haven't made it in the movies until you made it in America." In music, it's almost the opposite. A lot of people who, especially metal bands, are popular in the '80s. They're not popular now, but then they go overseas, and people love them. They're the biggest
Yeah.
draw there. And it's funny.
Yeah.
It's like just the opposite with music. They go overseas, and maybe it's because what you just mentioned in Colombia, that's not as big of a thing over there. So when it does come, everybody goes crazy for it.
Yeah. There's just like not as much, I guess, like business stuff about it, right?
Yeah,
Just by virtue of not being in LA or whatever big
yeah,
city. But like Bogota is like a huge city. It's like 10 million people, and I mean it's massive. There's tons of stuff there. And I also come from a perspective that's like as a foreigner, so I only kind of like knew what I knew.
yeah.
Like when you don't speak the language very well. I mean, I speak Spanish now, but when I first got there, I didn't, and then it proved. But it's like when you don't have that language, like you just don't know anything. So
Well, let's talk about that because you went down there and you barely knew the language at all. So how did you get by? Because back then, I'm sure now it's easier because at my job, if somebody who doesn't speak English and I need to speak with them, they'll say they have a translator on their cell phone, and it's easy for me to like talk into it and then it translate into Spanish or
yeah,
whatever language. So back then, I'm sure they didn't have that type of device. So how did you get by?
well, well, there was Google Translate, but it wasn't like talk. I couldn't talk into it and
Yeah.
just get the sentence. I'd just have to look up a word and
Okay.
like figure out how to use it, essentially, right?
Yeah.
So, yeah, but I just stayed with, people pretty much speak English. Like, there's usually someone around who speaks English,
Yeah.
um, wherever you go, and but I just talked to people who didn't speak English and tried to do that because I knew I wanted to learn Spanish. Like once I was there, and it was like, oh, okay, I'm just gonna stay here as like long as I can, I guess. I'm just gonna do that. And once I had that in mind, it was like, um, yeah, I just went and talked to people, no matter how stupid I sounded. I guess.
No, that's good. Well, you know what's funny? I used to be a manager at Rite Aid, and I had a lot of Albanians work for me. And I was talking to them, and most of them learned English by watching soap operas. They would go to night school, but they said, "We just watch your TV. We love soap operas." I said, "Really?" And they said, "Yeah, that's how I learned." And not just one person said that; a lot of people said that. And I'm trying to think of myself doing exactly what you did, going to a place where I don't know the language and doing it like that. So, did you learn besides talking to the people and looking up words? Did you watch TV and it's sort of like a Rosetta
Yeah,
Stone in a way?
yeah. I watch TV. I watch like action movies. I would
Yeah.
just always watch action movies, whatever was on TV. I always seem to land on an action movie. I can't really stand soaps, really.
And you're good.
Yes, but action movies I'll deal with. So I watched a bunch of action movies in Spanish.
Are-
That helped.
Down there, are American movies really big?
Yeah, yeah,
Yep.
yeah.
All right, well, I want to talk about this. That was 2016, you were in Colombia, and then 2020, you're still writing it, and COVID
Yeah.
hit.
So,
Where were you at that time?
well, so then there was like a pause where I didn't really work on anything. I just kind of had it in mind. It was there, mostly there,
Yeah.
right? Like I had 10 songs, two of which didn't make it on the album, actually. But I had 10 kind of songs in mind. And I moved to Brazil. I had a Colombian girlfriend. We moved to Brazil together for a while. And then I went to China 2018.
Wait, stop right there. You say it so casually. How'd you go from Colombia to Brazil to China?
Yeah.
Decide to say one day, wake up. Yeah, I feel like going to China today. Sort of the way I
Yeah.
say, like, I feel like going to Applebee today.
It's kind of funny, I guess. The China thing happened because I was working teaching English online because it was flexible. I could do anything. I could do anywhere I wanted to. I could set my own hours. So I taught English online.
Huh.
And all my students were Chinese,
Hmm.
like every single one. That's the people who want to learn English and
Yep.
pay for it, right?
Yeah.
So and then I just was like tired of that. Teaching online is a pain in the ass. Um,
I
try
can
not to
imagine.
do it. You ever are forced to do it, try not to. um, yeah, so it just wears on you. I did it for like a year. And I was like, okay, I'm just gonna go like teach in China. And also I had my family is apparently insane. I had been to China when I was 5 and I like turned 6 there. My parents just like took me and my brother there as small children in 1993. Um, so I was like always wanted to go back to China. Um, but yeah, so it just kind of worked out that way. Like all my students were Chinese. It's like, okay, I've wanted to go back. I'm gonna go back.
But unfortunately, when you did go down there, that was the worst time to be down there because what happened next?
The glorious times. The glorious times.
Let's go down memory lane.
Yeah. Oh God. Well, but that's how the demos happened
Yeah.
for Take Take, right? When the lockdown happened, it was like, okay, I guess I'm just gonna do a demo. I'm gonna try finally
Yeah.
to do a real demo with like real instruments. Still had sequence drums at that point, but I recorded, and that's when I wrote a bunch of the lyrics too.
Hmm.
Almost all the lyrics were written at that time for
Yeah.
Take. Um, so yeah, that's when I finally did it. Found out whether I could play things or not, and I could. So
Do you ever? I'm gonna guess no. I want your answer on this. That do you ever get writer's block? But you really don't have a time frame you have to get done. You could do it at your own pace. It's not like a record company saying, "Oh, we need this done in 3 months. We need 12 songs." So for you, do you just write when you're inspired, or do you make it an effort? Like every day, I'm gonna work on a song for a couple hours before I do this or do that.
no, like I tend to write when I'm inspired.
Yeah,
So like some people do it that way where they sit down every day. That's like a Stephen King move, right?
exactly.
Guy sits down every single day and writes for 4 hours or whatever. Whether I'm not quite like that. So like there's a long time with like low periods where I just didn't write much.
Hmm.
Um, yeah, I don't know. I don't know if that's gonna like continue forever, but that's kind of how it's been throughout my life. Usually it doesn't last too long, like a low point. It might be like a few months or something. Um, but then when I'm getting into something and I feel inspired, that's when I go like I am going to work on this every day because I
Yeah.
just have that feeling. And to me, like music, like doing it as a job with Necro made me really hate that.
Hmm.
Right? Really, really hate that. It was like, man, this thing that I love, just like it's this thing that I love, like maybe the most in the world, like this
Yeah.
concept that I love, this thing, this music. And I just am angry or
Yeah.
upset to like be in this world and like deal with whatever nonsense you have to deal with as a musician. I just hated that. So now I'm like much more uh, cognizant of like how and why I do the music, and I feel like it ends up better creatively, maybe. Um, and I would try again to do it as like a full-time job, but it's much more like my way
Yeah.
nowadays than it was before. So
Well, I could see it's like when something's a job and now it's more of a passion. Even though you had the passion for the music before, but then you were just doing it so often that became a job, and you just like, oh, I just can't take this anymore. But yeah, I completely understand what you're saying, because for me, I got like that with stand-up comedy. It wasn't a full-time job for me, but I was doing it all the time. And one day I just said, I really just don't feel like doing this anymore. I just got so sick and tired of everything, and
yeah,
then
I mean,
and I
things
went and
just
moved
add
on.
up, right? Like,
Yep, exactly.
yeah.
But now I think that you took a break, you did everything, took off to Colombia, went to China, so took your time with it, and now it's like back to like doing it because you love it, not because you have to do it.
Right, exactly. And that was a big thing about the Wailing Coast, because like those guys, uh like their guitarist quit at some point, and they asked me to play guitar because
Hmm.
they're just my buds at the bar.
Yeah,
Um, and I was like, oh, I can't play anything he plays. Like I just don't know how to play his stuff.
yeah,
I mean, I could do it. I could. Are you sure? Like I could do my style stuff, but that's all I got. And they were like, yeah, yeah, do your style stuff. And I was like, and that being in that band really like brought it back for me
yeah.
in
All right,
terms of like
that's the band for
passion and
people.
enjoyment.
Yeah, well, for people who don't, or we're talking in the beginning of it. That's the more of the reggae band, the Wailing Coast.
That's the Wailing Coast. Yeah. Well, they do. Yeah, a little
The
bit
stuff
of
I heard
reggae.
anyway. I
It's
heard
like
more.
rock, indie,
Yeah,
rock, more stuff. The EP I was on, Dead on Holiday, which I got to record, and I didn't mix it, but I engineered it, and played guitar on it. That's just like a really fun EP to me. It spans the gamut from sort of like there's like surfy stuff. There's
yeah.
like on the barely edge of metal. There's like a little bit of punk. There's a little bit of reggae. There's a little bit of this and that. Um, yeah, that EP is really fun. That band really helped me get back into the swing of things.
So before you joined them, were
Sorry, I got to plug in my phone.
yeah, go ahead.
Sorry, I'm gonna move. I'm gonna change venues here. Um, yeah, sorry, walking through.
No, no problem. Get the grand tour. I like that.
The old house in Pasadena. Oh, so let's see here. Um, so yeah, Wayland Coast, just like those guys are so excellent.
Oh yeah, I love that. And so the question I was going to ask you was, how established were they before you joined the band? Were they already known in that area and they were really popular, and then they said, "Oh, come on, join the band"?
Um, it was like a local band. So I was in a city called Xiamen in China, which is like the south, like right across from Taiwan, basically.
Hmm.
Um, and it's like there's no music scene there.
Hmm.
Like and in China, and especially during the pandemic, they limit the size of the gatherings that you can have. And then if you're like a foreigner in a band or a foreign band, sometimes the police will just like shut it. They'll just say like, no, you can't play.
Yeah.
Like they'll just call you because they have your number. And so they'll just call you, or they'll like message your Chinese girlfriend, or whoever it is,
Yeah.
and they'll just be like, no show today. And you're just like, okay, I guess that's the end of that for today.
Wow.
Yeah, so the scene there is like quite difficult, I feel, but they're just like a good local rock band. Been
Yeah.
there for a while, and just good dudes.
And how many releases do they have?
So they had one album before And then just this EP that they've released,
Mm-hmm.
and they've done like music videos that they just put out themselves on YouTube, and working on another full length right now. So
Right. So you were in China during COVID. How long were
yes.
you there before? I mean, I'm not sure if you wanted to stay there for a while, but how long were you there before you were able to leave?
So COVID was kind of, good and bad for me in China.
Yeah.
um, uh, Good in the sense that when it happened, I kind of stuck around initially, and because of that, I got like a really good job at a really good school because that's what I
Mhm.
was doing, teaching,
Yeah.
and it was a 2-year contract. So I stayed from that point. It was already like August 2020, and it was like I was locked in for 2 more years. So, but it was a great job, and I'm really grateful to that school for giving it to me. I just, everybody left, so lucky me.
Yep. So I know down there you did the live demo sessions in China. So did you just
Yeah,
take those? Did you take those demos when you came back to the U.S. and that's when you recorded the album?
yeah. So I took those, and then came back home, and because by the end of my 2-year contract that I was in, that teaching contract, great school, great experience to like work there. But I was just also over it. Like I hadn't seen my family in 2.5 years. It's like, get me out of here.
Yeah.
That's just how it goes, right? At that point in time. So when I came back, that's when I started kind of working on it in earnest. That was like 2022. Um, I was like, you know what? I'll just re-record some things. I think some of these guitars are good. And then like I re-recorded some things, and I had changed the pickups in my guitars when I was in my guitar when I was in China. It was like all of a sudden it sounded like cooler. It's like, okay, I'm gonna re-record the whole album. You know, and then I like went up to visit my friend up in Santa Barbara, and like showed him the demos. He's like, "Are you gonna record drums for this?" I was like, "No, man. Like drums are too hard to record. It's like such a pain in the ass. I'm not gonna do it." He's like, "Dude, you're a drummer. You should record the drums." I'm like, "Okay, fine."
Well, I think it is funny. Out of
Re-record.
all the instruments that you actually took lessons for and played the most, that's the one that you weren't going to put in the album.
I know. Very, yeah. But I'm really glad that,
Yeah.
and he was right, and that was the right decision. And I was just, you know, I don't know. I had a little bit of self doubt or something still, or I just was being lazy about it, or something. It was that when I did the drums, it was like that's when I really realized it's like, okay, I am gonna do this for real and like make a push and do a proper album release and like get people who really know how to work on things like Matt Bayles and Jens Bogren. Like I'm gonna get the best that I could possibly find. That's when it really like clicked.
Yeah.
I just did drums in this house in the living room.
Well, I was going to ask you, where did you record this?
Yep, just drums in the house in the living room. I like moved all the stuff to the side, and I set up right in the middle, and I chained 3 interfaces together, and I had a crappy HP laptop that I basically bought because it had 16 gigs of RAM, and I recorded the whole thing on Reaper. uh, and then I recorded all the guitars and the bass and the vocals like right there in front of my computer, and then the vocals like in this closet.
So,
That was it.
so Matt or Jens never said, no, let's go into a studio. Like, yeah, just come over to my house. We'll record it. They were, obviously, they were really cool with it.
Well,
But,
I didn't talk to them until I'd recorded the whole thing.
oh, okay.
Yeah, so I was like, I was like, well, I've done this.
Yeah.
What do you think? Would you want to work on this?
Okay. Yeah. I got
Yeah.
that mixed up. So, yeah, I understand now. So, but it sounds great. I love it. And as I mentioned in the intro, you are
Yeah.
like the busiest man in music. We mentioned the band before, and I want to talk about them now. Last Leg. That is
Yeah, last leg.
such a fun band. I'm rocking in the car, moshing around. I
Yeah.
loved it.
Yeah. I was really happy with that EP too. And those are like, Last Leg is another band that's kind of like got Wailing Coast vibes, where it's like the love of music and just like having a good time. That one I write the drums, but I don't write any of the riffs or anything. I just play drums in that band.
Yeah.
And I mean, I do some songwriting. We work together on songs. But that band is definitely like, I'm with the boys. It's like
So,
the reason I got into music in the first place, right? It's like got that vibe. So I'm
mhm.
very happy with Last Leg.
Yeah, no,
And the
that's
recording was fun too. I recorded that one as well, and I mixed that one. So I was pleased with that.
yeah. Well, I was going to talk to you about that because not only do you play all these instruments, but you actually mix that EP. So is this another one where you said, "Let me just take a try it"? You just learned how to do it from all the other times you were in bands and saw what they were doing, and you said, I
Yeah,
think I could do this."
yeah. So I actually didn't think I could. When going up and working with Matt Bayles
Yeah,
really opened my eyes to kind of the the detail and the attention that needs to be paid for like a decent mix, um just like in terms of work, for it was super educational for me to see him work on Take and Take,
yeah.
the Disillusion record. So once that happened, it's like, yeah, I'm gonna try and mix it. And I told the guys like, I'll do a mix, and if we like it, we like it, and if not, no hard feelings. If we want to go to, God City or,
Yeah.
whoever wants to, if we want to pay a guy to do it. But they liked it enough. So, and then we got it mastered, very importantly, with Tony Lindgren, who's
Mhm.
the mastering engineer at Jens Bogren studio.
Wow.
Like this, yeah. So we went with him, and he just, made it shine. Tony's awesome.
So are you still playing with them while you're doing Take and Take?
Yes, yes, I am.
See, you could probably have a whole festival with just all the bands you're in. It's just like every single band, like five bands are at this festival. It's like, yeah, it's all Eddie Trager.
Yeah, theoretically, I guess I could. That'd be a long day, though.
Oh my God, yeah, I think so. I want to get back
Have
to
you?
what was that?
Sorry, go ahead. Go
No,
ahead.
I wanted to ask you about the recording of the Take and Take because since you did everything, I want your process. Did you go in there with guitars first and then do the bass and drums, and then vocals, and just do like how long did it take for each one to record?
Yeah. So I did it kind of traditionally. I mean, in the end, I started doing guitars, recording guitars to my MIDI drums that I'd sequenced.
Hmm.
But then it was like, okay, I'm gonna record. Then when it was decided that I was actually gonna record drums, I went back and like essentially, you know, I took a look at everything and I pretty much recorded everything else again.
Yeah,
Pretty much recorded everything again, guitar wise. Some of the bass got stuck, um, and then vocals came after. So kind of traditional in that sense.
hmm,
The keyboards also, like I did a lot of like more sound designy stuff later in the process, where I in my original demos, like all the keyboard sounds were quite different, or I hadn't quite spent enough time. I just put like three notes, chords in parts, and I really went in there and like made sure the keyboard parts were like really fleshed out and had movement and like more voice leading and all this type of stuff, and had like cool tones and like actual good synth sounds and like decent contact instruments, and you know
yeah.
got into that. So yeah, in terms of the order of stuff, let's see, I recorded November 2022 was when I did the drums. And then I sent files to Matt end of March 2023.
Hmm.
It's almost like a year to the day,
Wow.
like now, since the mix happened. It was like this week last year.
Yeah.
And the last few days, I slept for like 3 hours a night because I was doing so much work, like just cleaning up. Like
Yeah.
because I was kind of new to stuff, like my workflow wasn't as like refined as some engineers, right? Like they just engineers who specifically know what they're doing, and they solve a lot of problems early, which I did not solve,
Yeah.
you
Well,
know. So there was a lot of like organizing and renaming and like
yeah.
making sure that everything was, you know, legible to Matt, you know, like when he got like a, a song that had like 400 tracks in it. He like saw that and was like, okay, Eddie, you've doubled this and this and this. I'm cutting that out. Like this one. I'm like, okay, cool. So like I didn't, I just wasn't as efficient as I am now.
Now who picked both the singles, "Sticky" and "That Won't Last"? Was that you, or was that them saying, "I think these will be great singles. Release these first"? Was that a concerted effort, or was it more just like, "All right, I like these songs. Let's release this"? And
That was me. I did ask, so I've worked with Surricate Music, which is like a digital marketing company. Um, awesome people. So happy to work with them.
yeah,
I got opinions from them. I got opinions from like my friends who had just heard my demos before, like, on track order and like singles and stuff. But in the end, I chose what I chose. Sticky was partially because I could just like, it was one of the more feasible ones to do that video,
hmm,
right? Like,
yeah,
because I wanted to do a video where I was doing everything. Um, and but that's just one of the more feasible ones.
yeah,
Um, just by nature of like every part, Any I could even like kind of play the keyboards too. There's like a couple of keyboard shots in there, and I did learn the actual keyboards that I had sequenced for that video.
yeah.
But it was, yeah. So that was kind of the reason for that one, and then that one last just seemed like it's a little bit shorter. It's got like a punch to it. Kind of starts off like a little stronger than other ones that have like longer intros. I just felt like it'd be an okay single.
Now I think I
Yeah.
read that was released in February, but I couldn't find a video for that one. Do you have a video released for
Yeah,
that?
there's a video. It's like a lyrics video. It's a lyric
Okay,
video, like
yeah.
a visualizer. Yeah. Done by this guy, this person, Drain Hope, who does tons of videos for metal bands, all kinds of stuff.
Yeah, I'll have to check it
Um,
out.
and then the last single was Digging, and that one, I don't know if you saw that one. That came out the same day as the album, but
Mhm.
that one I wanted no instruments in that, I wanted
Yeah.
it to be just like a visual thing, like a movie.
Yep. Now, was that your concept, or was that somebody else that said, "Oh, we should do this"?
Um, for Digging, I worked with the director because Isaac, keyboards Isaac,
Mhm.
um, had done composition for him. He had done scoring for his movies before. This guy
Ah,
Weber won. Um, for like short films or something. And I just liked his style. I was just like, I'm just gonna have this guy do what he does. And we kind of worked up a concept. He asked for like props or themes and we kind of talked about it, and then he came up with a treatment based
mm,
on that.
yep.
Because I didn't really want a story, and I didn't want me playing in a warehouse again. Um, done that. And so it was just, I wanted it to be like a little more artsy and avant-garde and whatever. So
Yeah, I definitely have to check that one out. I didn't see that one yet, but I will. After this interview is over, I'm going to look it up and watch it because I know the
cool.
song. I love the song. I just haven't seen a video yet. Uh, uh, Something interesting. I interviewed Andrew Hagar, Sammy Hagar's son, and he was telling me that the issue he had that he didn't like is that Spotify. I know you probably don't have this issue because you're not on a label, but they always wanted them to release instead of like a full album, just one song every month. So people, so basically, it's we're an ADD nation in a way where people forget easily. Like, oh, I forgot all about. So they want something a refresher every month. And he said, I just missed the days where I can come out with a full album, take a year and a half off, live life, have experience and then come out and write some great songs instead of like every month trying to come out with a new thing. So I know you really don't have the issue. So you just released the whole album all at once. You're not releasing. Well, I mean, I know you released the two singles. I think one in January, one in February, and then one just right
Yeah.
the day of the album. But for the most part, in the future, you're just going to be releasing the album all at once so that people could buy it on Bandcamp or stream it.
Yeah, just as I feel like it's very much exactly how I feel like doing it.
Yeah.
If I feel like putting out a single, I'll do that. Um, I have some concepts cooking, for future stuff. I've got a few other songs. I've got like a concept for something like much more experimental, but still take and take. Um, we'll see. We'll see what happens. We'll see. Something will come out eventually again.
Oh yeah, and I will be the first one to buy it. I can't wait.
Awesome.
I want to talk about, you mentioned the keyboards, Isaac, the band, Lady Named Isaac. This is interesting because, as I mentioned, it's emo, shoegaze. I mean, what is shoegaze? What kind of music is that?
Like uh what I know of shoegaze is like that, like the black metal shoegaze stuff, like Death Heaven.
Okay.
Yeah,
Because this has, I mean, listening to it has a little bit of everything, and also chamber music. It's
yeah,
such a great eclectic mix.
yeah. So that's all Isaac.
Yeah,
That project is all Isaac. She does everything. Yeah,
yeah, and
it's really astounding stuff. Like seeing Isaac play live is so awesome.
yeah. Now, is this
So,
another band that you still tour with, or at least play shows with?
no, currently we're doing like Isaac has done shows himself, and we're working it up to build it to be more of like a production live,
Mhm.
to be more of like a band experience live. So we're doing kind of like a collective thing with like Take and Take and a lady named Isaac, just like finding the players we need to play our music. Yeah.
Now, when you say for the show experience, do you mean like not just the band, but you're going to put on a big stage show as well?
Yeah. Well, I mean, that'd be nice
Yeah,
if we could eventually, of
yeah,
course. Um, but being things how they are with the music business, you just absolutely never know. I,
yeah.
you know, you just don't know. You have no idea.
No, no,
But
no, obviously, yeah. It's so hit or miss, and you really, like you said, it's so unpredictable now compared to the way it used to be.
yeah, and yeah, I don't know what's gonna happen, but just doing it for the love of it, and that's where I'm at currently, and I just do the stuff I like to do. So
Yeah. Well,
that's that's the best answer I could give you on that one.
no, well, I love that answer because when I was doing comedy, it's funny. Everybody'd say, "Why are you always so happy?" I said, "I'm having fun," and I would have people say, "You have fun doing this?" I said, "What are you doing it for?" They thought they would get up on stage and they'd get like a three Comedy Central deal, and I was like, "It's not going to happen like that. If it does, I'm happy for you, but do it because you love it. Don't do it just because you're trying to get fame and glory, because you're
Yeah,
never. It's not going to be sincere. It's not going to be genuine. And that's why I love people like you. Like, if you make it, that's a great thing, but you're doing it because you have a passion for it. This is your love, and you make great music, and you want the world to hear it. So I love that. And then
yeah,
whatever happens, happens.
yeah. With Take and Take, it was like such a personal thing. Like obviously, I want people to hear it and like see what I have done. That type.
Yeah,
There's that type of feeling, but also I think if I just did it and just like put it on Bandcamp and never and just announced it once and didn't do any of this whole promo stuff, I would still feel just as good and
yeah,
satisfied about the work I had done. It was for me. It was totally for me. That's why I did it.
yep. No, I love that attitude, and for all different things. Like perfect example is this: I've had people say, "Do you get paid for doing this?" I said, "No, I have a job that pays the bills. I just do it for fun." Why would you want to do that? Because I meet interesting and talented people like you and so many other, and I learn so many things. I have so much fun doing it. I would love money, but it's not the most important thing. With this, I just have a great time doing it, and as I mentioned, I meet so many interesting people, and I've bands that maybe you've never would have heard of. Now I'm introduced to this whole new scene, and it's great.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
I want to go through your list of bands because each band I said is different, and I like them all for different reasons. And this one I like not only does it have great music, but it has one of the best names. Eddie Spaghetti and the Selfish Bitches. So if I know you said you didn't come up with the name. So how did that name come up, and how did you become involved with that band?
So with that band, that was so Eddie Spaghetti and the Selfish Bitches, or ESSB, or whatever you want to call it. Um, that came about. That's totally like the opposite vibe of Take and Take in
Mhm.
terms of process
Yeah,
for me. Um, like Take and Take is very thinking, agonizing over every note type of music, right?
yeah.
You just gotta. And Eddie Spaghetti is just not that way.
Hmm.
It's not that way at all. But that came about because I just hung out with my friends Maya and Kelly, and then one day we would just like buy bottles of wine and be like scumbags at the park and drink it. Like that was like the whole vibe of our friendship. just like do nothing and mess around and
Everybody
just
needs a
like
friend like that.
yeah, it's great, it's awesome. And
Yeah.
then they were like, Eddie, we've done it. We have an idea. They was like, we're in a band now, and they're like, it's Eddie Spaghetti and the Selfish Bitches. And they said that to me, and I was like, oh yeah, cool. I'm on it. You got it. I know what this sounds like, I think. And then like one day I was part of this group with like some friends and other people. It's called the songwriting game, and you had to write a song every week. And if
Hmm.
you didn't or every 2 weeks, and if you didn't write and record a song, they kicked you out of the group.
Oh man.
So I was in this group, so it was like a Sunday, and I was like, man, the deadline's coming. If I want to stay in the group, I better do this. And it was like, I'm gonna write some Eddie Spaghetti stuff. I know what this is gonna be like. I sat down, and it was like wrote a riff, recorded it, recorded a riff, set a different tempo, record a riff, set a different tempo, record a riff, set a different tempo. That's like 20 of the songs on the first album in like
Wow.
a day. It's like the total opposite of Take and Take, just as fast as possible and as dumb as possible.
And how many releases do you have with that band?
Just the one, just the
Just the
one.
one.
We did the full length Past Anomaly, and I put out like an EP. There's an EP on Bandcamp of like demos, just a few of the songs.
Okay.
But the main thing is Past Anomaly.
Yep. I don't know. I just on Spotify I typed that in and I listened to every song that was on there. So I'm sure I listened to
Oh,
whatever
cool.
they had. So yeah, but so I can't remember like which album was which or what was the demos or anything. I just listened to everything on my way
Yeah,
to work and on my way back home from work. I listened to another band. On the way back to work the next day, I listened to another band. Just taking it all
cool.
in, loving every minute of it.
Yeah,
The
awesome.
funniest thing
Yeah.
that happened to me, and I wasn't sure. I went on Spotify and I'm listening. I said Bread, Autumn Swell, Crush. This can't be the same Eddie Trager. I'm saying he looks like him. Let me go back and I'm trying to find. I wonder if this is Eddie. So let's talk about how those songs came about and what you're going to be doing with that.
Oh, yeah. So Bread is the latest one for. I'm pivoting to children's music on for
You
the
do it
Eddie
all.
Trager artist. Because actually, so after I did the Take and Take demos in the lockdown, it was still lockdown. I wasn't back at work, and I
Mhm.
was working at a preschool. I was like, you know what? I sing Raffi songs all the time to these kids. I just take my guitar in and sing Raffi songs. Everyone had a great time. This was glorious. And I was like, you know what? I'm just gonna try and record like a kids album. I'm just gonna do kids music. I'm gonna see what happens. And I ended up writing. I have almost a full album. It's coming. So Bread was the first one, and I released that one because I played it for the school at an assembly that I'm at now, and all the kids were like, "Ah!" Like going all crazy. I'm like, oh my god, I haven't had a response like this for years and years and years. They're all going crazy. I was like,
That's funny. Out
okay,
of all the
put
bands
that
you've
one
been
out.
in, that was the best crowd.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, it was seriously was, yeah. they're,
That's
they're
great.
going crazy. So I put that one out to like let them all listen to it because they all kept asking me. But I did want to do a kids album anyway.
That's hilarious.
So it's
You're like a
coming. Yeah,
hardcore Dr. Seuss.
yeah, hardcore. Yeah, exactly. It's just like Raffi with an edge or something. I don't know.
No, I love the
um,
songs. It was just so completely different than anything I heard from the other bands. I really wasn't sure if it was you or not until I dug a little bit deeper and found out you were doing a children's album.
and that EP, that blue EP called "So," is like that was that was just like acoustic stuff I did.
Yep.
Um, Also mostly in Colombia, I guess. Um, but I wasn't thinking of like kids music at that time. But it's there. It's nice. It's nice stuff. It's
Yeah, I
listenable.
enjoyed it. I enjoyed it. I, I might be one of those kids in the audience going, "Yeah!" if I ever see
Yeah.
you at a concert. So do you have it released yet? Because I mean, I know the songs I saw on Spotify, but do you have anything that's released besides that for your children's album?
No, that's coming up. So
Okay.
working on that one. That'll be like I mean, I did record drums for it, real proper drums.
Hmm.
So that's me on the drums on the Bread song. So I have stuff recorded, but I gotta redo I just gotta redo some stuff, like do some guitars again and like redo some vocals and this and that. Ask Isaac kindly if they'll do some keyboards for me and really put that like that Berkeley musician spice on things.
I
um,
like it. It has that
yeah,
little touch to it. It's
yeah.
very good. Well, it's been so much fun talking to you. Before we go, is there anything that I did not go over that you want to talk about?
I don't think so. It's pretty comprehensive, I would say.
Yeah.
I'm working on. I think you talked about everything that I've ever worked on. I just want to shout out to like um Vile Life, this band called Vile Life, which is like all the guys in Last Leg. But there's like another project with the drummer of he plays for Infest, that
Mhm.
hardcore band, and ACXDC, another local like grindcore band, I guess.
Ah,
Um, uh, I'm producing and mixing their next release. It's like brutal hardcore. It's awesome. It's really cool stuff. So shout out to them. Shout out to Eric and Take a Take, his other band, Grudgebot.
mhm.
Um, and he has a solo project called Quantity of Dimension One. It's like a prog thing. Um, Tim had another project called Sparrow, which, if anyone ever wants to check out any of this music of all the buds, do. I guess that's what I would say. Yeah.
All right. So before we go, what's next and where can people find you?
What's next and where can people find me? So next is we've got some shows. If you're in the LA area, if anyone's ever in the LA area, we're doing shows here and there. Um, Look on Instagram for that. Instagram is take_official. Um, if you my the main Instagram I use that I post all the music stuff on is Past Anomaly, or Past Anomaly,
Mhm.
one word.
Yep.
So that's where you can find me on Instagram. Mostly is the place. I've got like there's a band TikTok and a band Facebook, but no, don't use it that much.
All right. Well, you know what?
Yeah.
Eddie, it was so much fun having you on the show. Please come back on the show next time. Even if you don't have anything to promote, I just love talking to you about music and anything else that's going on. I mean, you have such an interesting life with all your traveling, your
Yeah.
different musical influences. So you have carte blanche on the show. Please come back. I loved
Wow.
it, and hopefully you're somewhere on the East Coast, like I said, New Jersey, Connecticut, Rhode Island, Massachusetts, New York. I will be there front row, watching like those kids at the school.
Yeah.
Going
Yeah.
crazy.
Awesome. Oh, that's so nice of you. Very kind of you to say. I'd be happy to come back. And I do hope to get to the East Coast one of these days. Realistically, I don't know if it'll be this year, but you never know what'll happen. It might be with Last Leg or with something else. Who knows?
All right. Well, I look forward to it. It was great having you on the show.
Appreciate it.
Yeah, you're very welcome. That wraps up the latest episode of The Claw's Corner. A huge thanks goes out to drummer, percussionist, singer, songwriter, producer, and cover art artist Eddie Trager for taking time off his extremely busy schedule to be a guest on my show. A huge thanks also goes out to editor extraordinaire John Bristol of the award-winning Elmwood Productions for always doing a superb job editing the show each and every week and making it available to all on YouTube. I also need to thank Joseph Timothy Quirk and Rob Bull for all they do to make my show available on several connected radio stations, as well as Spotify, iTunes, Amazon Music, Audible, and iHeartRadio. Thank you both very, very much. And lastly, but definitely not least, I need to thank you, the viewer, for always tuning in. Enjoy your day, everyone.
Suckers! All of a sudden I hear brim, brim.
What's a diaphragm again?
Ha! We caught one.
They're supposed to be weird.
Oh, yeah, no. If you say so.
I've always wanted to be in a movie.
Around for all the